predator becomes prey in the Florida Everglades as hundreds of hunters descend on the Sunshine State to catch and kill as many Burmese pythons as possible.
The Everglades was supposed to be a place where predators ruled by the old rules of nature. Then something arrived that had never belonged there. Deep inside Big Cypress National Preserve, a motion camera sat 6 feet above the ground, pointed toward a narrow trail. Wildlife biologist Michael Kirkland had placed dozens of cameras across South Florida to document Burmese python activity. The assignment was simple: track movement, understand where the snakes were going, and measure how far the invasion had spread. But after 6 weeks, one memory card contained footage that changed the way researchers looked at the battle. The story begins with a disaster. In 1992, Hurricane Andrew tore across South Florida with enormous force. Among the damage was a reptile breeding facility where Burmese pythons were being kept. Enclosures were destroyed, and some snakes escaped into the surrounding landscape. But hurricanes were not the only way these animals entered the Everglades. Across South Florida, people had purchased Burmese pythons as exotic pets. The problem was that the tiny snakes did not stay tiny. They could grow into enormous constrictors, and when owners could no longer handle them, some released them into the wild. What looked like freedom for a pet became a nightmare for an ecosystem. The Everglades gave those snakes almost everything they needed. The wetlands offered warmth, humidity, dense vegetation, water, and an extraordinary supply of prey. Raccoons, possums, rabbits, birds, and even deer had evolved alongside native predators such as alligators, bobcats, and Florida panthers. But none had evolved with a giant constrictor that could hide motionless, detect warm-blooded prey, and strike from almost perfect concealment. The pythons did not simply survive. They multiplied. Females can produce enormous clutches of eggs, creating generation after generation of predators. As the population expanded, researchers began seeing something more disturbing than individual snake sightings. They were seeing an ecosystem becoming empty. Studies cited in the source described dramatic declines in mammals. Raccoons and possums became extraordinarily scarce, while bobcat numbers also suffered. The most frightening evidence, however, was not a statistic. It was silence. Researchers who had once driven Everglades roads surrounded by wildlife could now travel for miles without seeing much of anything. Places that once produced dozens of animal sightings could appear almost lifeless. The roads were still there. The sawgrass was still moving. The engine was still humming. But the animals that once made the landscape feel alive were disappearing. That mattered because these animals were not decorative pieces in the ecosystem. They were part of the machinery that kept the wetlands functioning. The Everglades helps protect communities from flooding, filters water, and supports the aquifers serving millions of people. When a top predator removes large numbers of mammals, the consequences can move through the entire ecological system. Florida fought back. The Python Challenge turned the invasion into a public hunt, bringing hundreds of people into the wetlands to remove as many snakes as possible. Thousands of pythons have been removed through hunting efforts, and professional contractors have continued searching year after year. Yet the scale of the problem makes the numbers difficult to celebrate. Removing thousands of snakes sounds enormous until it is compared with the population researchers believe may still exist. The landscape is vast, the snakes are difficult to see, and every surviving breeding female can replace losses with another generation. Hunters describe the experience as searching for ghosts. At night, a headlamp sweeps across vegetation and finds nothing. Then a shape appears that does not belong. What seemed like a root becomes a massive living animal, coiled perfectly still. Technology has struggled too. Thermal equipment can have trouble finding a cold-blooded snake when its body temperature blends with the environment. Robotic prey and other tricks can fail because pythons are patient ambush hunters. They do not need to chase a machine. They can simply wait. One of the more successful methods is sometimes called the Judas snake technique. Researchers equip a sexually mature male python with a tracking device and release him. During breeding season, the male may lead researchers toward other snakes gathered for reproduction. That allows hunters to find hidden concentrations and target large females that could produce many offspring. But even the best methods face the same problem. The Everglades is enormous. And then researchers discovered that the python invasion had brought another threat. The danger was no longer only a predator with powerful muscles and a stomach capable of swallowing large prey. It was something almost invisible, moving through the food chain. A parasite known as the snake lungworm had arrived with Burmese pythons. In their native range, pythons and the parasite have a long evolutionary relationship. The snakes can carry the organism without suffering the same catastrophic effects that unfamiliar species may experience. Florida's native snakes had no such history. Researchers found native snakes suffering from respiratory distress and severe weakness. Inside their bodies were parasites occupying the respiratory system, where they could grow, reproduce, and damage the lungs. The transmission route was disturbingly ordinary. Infected pythons could spread larvae through waste. Other organisms could consume those larvae. A frog could eat an infected insect, and a native snake could eat the frog. The normal food web became a delivery system for a parasite that had never belonged in Florida. The consequences could be slow and brutal. As parasites accumulated in the respiratory passages, infected snakes could weaken until breathing became increasingly difficult. And then came the discovery that made the problem much harder to solve. Researchers found evidence that the parasite was no longer dependent on Burmese pythons to continue circulating. It had begun moving through native wildlife on its own. That meant even a perfect python removal program might not erase the damage already done. The Everglades was facing two battles at once: Burmese pythons attacking the animal community from above, and a parasite spreading through native reptiles from within. But nature was not completely surrendering. Somewhere inside the chaos, scientists found a clue that could become important. The Florida cottonmouth appeared unusually resistant to the lungworm. In areas where other snakes carried significant parasite loads, cottonmouths sometimes showed remarkably little evidence of infection. Researchers did not yet know exactly why. The answer could eventually reveal something about resistance and survival. And while scientists searched for that answer, another native predator was beginning a comeback of its own. The eastern indigo snake had once been an important predator across the southeast. It was native, powerful, and almost impossibly dark, with scales that could shine blue or green under sunlight. Unlike the Burmese python, it was part of the ecosystem's original design. Its ecological importance came partly from what it hunted. Eastern indigos are snake eaters, capable of overpowering venomous species that would be dangerous to many other predators. They can prey on rattlesnakes, cottonmouths, and copperheads, using strength and speed rather than relying on venom. But the indigo had suffered from another human-caused crisis. Development destroyed longleaf pine habitat, while declining gopher tortoise populations removed the burrows these snakes depend on for shelter. In parts of North Florida, eastern indigos had effectively disappeared. Conservationists began rebuilding the habitat and breeding the snakes in captivity. The goal was not simply to release animals and hope for the best. They worked to restore the larger community around them: native vegetation, appropriate fire patterns, and gopher tortoise colonies. Then something happened that mattered far more than a successful release. A trail camera captured young eastern indigos that had not been released by humans. They had been born in the wild habitat that conservationists had spent years rebuilding. For the first time in decades, the species was showing signs of reproducing on its own in North Florida. That changed the question. The eastern indigo was no longer merely a conservation project. It could become part of the ecosystem's response. Could this returning predator eventually help push back against the invader? No one could promise that it would. A young Burmese python might be vulnerable to an adult indigo, but a huge mature female would be an entirely different opponent. There were no reliable observations showing that a restored indigo population could control adult pythons. And there was another danger. The same lungworm threatening native snakes might reach the very species conservationists were trying to rebuild. The indigo's resistance to pit viper venom offered no reason to assume it could resist a parasite with an entirely different biology. So the Everglades was approaching a strange moment. Humans were trying to remove an invader. Scientists were trying to understand a parasite. Conservationists were rebuilding a native predator. And somewhere beyond the cameras, the ecosystem was preparing its own response. The real question was whether that response would arrive in time. Because once an invasive predator becomes established, removing individuals is not the same as restoring balance. The next chapter would depend on what native wildlife learned to do when faced with the enemy for itself. The answer was waiting on a memory card. When Michael Kirkland finally reviewed the 6 weeks of footage from the Everglades camera, He saw something researchers had not expected to capture. A bobcat was dragging the body of a Burmese python through the mud. The python was enormous compared with the cat. Its head was gone. The footage mattered because for years the Burmese python had occupied a position that seemed almost impossible to challenge. It had entered an ecosystem without a natural history there, encountered prey that did not recognize it, and spread through a landscape where concealment was everywhere. Now a native predator had killed one. The footage did not prove that bobcats could control the python population. It did not mean the invasion was ending. But it suggested something important. The relationship between predator and prey was beginning to change. For years, the native animals had been encountering a completely unfamiliar hunter. They had no learned behavior for recognizing its danger. A predator that had never seen a giant constrictor had no reason to treat it as a threat or opportunity. Learning changes that equation. Alligators have been observed attacking smaller Burmese pythons. Other native predators have also shown interest in the snakes. And trail camera observations have suggested that even some of Florida's rarest predators may investigate them. That matters especially when a python is vulnerable. A snake that has just consumed a large meal can become slow and heavily burdened. A python exposed to cooler conditions can become less active because its body depends on external temperatures. And while the snake is powerful, its head is still a vulnerable target for a fast predator that knows exactly where to strike. The ecosystem may be learning the python's weaknesses one encounter at a time. But learning is not the same as recovery. The Everglades is too large for a few dramatic predator attacks to erase decades of invasion. Professional hunters have removed thousands of Burmese pythons, yet the remaining population can continue reproducing. Researchers can locate breeding groups, but they cannot watch every stretch of sawgrass, cypress, marsh, and waterway at once. The most important battle may therefore be happening at a scale humans cannot easily see. Every python removed matters, especially a large female. Every breeding female that disappears before producing another generation represents future snakes that never enter the ecosystem. But every hidden snake that survives can continue the invasion. This is why the eastern indigo recovery could become so important. The indigo is not being introduced as a biological weapon. It is a native animal being returned to habitat from which humans helped remove it. That distinction is crucial. A restored predator belongs to the system in ways an invasive predator never did. If eastern indigos become established at healthy densities, they could prey on young snakes, including juvenile Burmese pythons. That would not necessarily stop the invasion, but it could increase pressure during the most vulnerable stage of a python's life. The idea is compelling because population control often depends on breaking reproduction rather than eliminating every adult. A young snake that never reaches maturity cannot become another breeding female. But there is a major uncertainty. No one knows exactly what would happen when an adult eastern indigo meets a giant mature Burmese python in the wild. The indigo is a formidable snake, but a 15-foot female weighing far more than the native predator would be an entirely different challenge. The encounter has not been observed well enough to provide a simple answer. And the lungworm creates an even darker possibility. Conservationists can rebuild habitat. They can breed indigos. They can release them into protected landscapes. They can watch for hatchlings and celebrate every sign of independent reproduction. But they cannot assume that a restored population is safe from a parasite that has already moved through Florida's native snake community. The indigo's ability to resist pit viper venom is highly specialized. It says nothing about whether its immune system can withstand a foreign parasite. If the lungworm reaches vulnerable indigo populations before those populations become secure, the restoration effort could face a threat from within. That is what makes the Everglades crisis so difficult to understand. There is no single villain and no single solution. The Burmese python is the visible threat. It is large enough to photograph, powerful enough to kill deer, and dramatic enough to become the symbol of the invasion. But the parasite is harder to see. It moves through insects, amphibians, and reptiles, using ordinary food chain relationships to reach new hosts. Then there is the human factor. The invasion did not begin because the Everglades invited Burmese pythons. It began through a mixture of escaped animals, released pets, and human decisions that placed a tropical predator into a subtropical ecosystem where it did not belong. Now humans are trying to undo the consequences. Hunters walk roads at night, scanning for shapes hidden in vegetation. Researchers follow tracked males toward breeding groups. Scientists examine infected snakes and study why one species may resist what harms others. Conservationists rebuild forests and restore animals that once disappeared from them. It is an enormous effort against an enormous landscape. And the strangest part is that the final outcome may not be decided by humans alone. Native predators are watching. They are encountering pythons repeatedly. Some may be learning that the strange giant snake can be attacked, that certain moments make it vulnerable, and that a predator that once seemed untouchable can sometimes become prey. That is exactly what Kirkland's camera captured. Not the collapse of the python population. Not the end of the invasion. A moment when the old rules began returning. The Everglades had started learning. But nature learns slowly, while invasive populations can expand quickly. That is why the silence remains such a warning. A wetland can look beautiful even when its ecological structure is damaged. The sawgrass can still wave. Birds can still cross the sky. Water can still move through channels. A visitor may see a wilderness and never realize how many animals have vanished from it. The missing wildlife is often the hardest evidence to notice. Researchers can count captured pythons. They can count infected snakes. They can record restored indigo hatchlings. They can map sightings and breeding locations. But nobody can easily count the animals that should have been there and are not. That is the deeper lesson of the Everglades. An ecosystem is not just scenery. It is a network of relationships built over generations. When an invasive predator enters that network, the damage does not stop with the animals it eats. It can alter behavior, reproduction, disease transmission, and the balance between species. The Burmese python changed that network. The lungworm changed it again. Now Florida is attempting something even harder, helping the original network rebuild itself. The future could go several ways. The python population could remain entrenched, forcing generations of hunters and researchers to keep fighting a battle that never truly ends. The parasite could continue spreading and place additional pressure on native reptiles. Or native predators could adapt, restored species could reproduce, and human intervention could slowly push the ecosystem toward a new balance. Perhaps all three will happen at once. There may never be a single day when someone announces that the Everglades has been saved. Instead, recovery may appear in small moments. A hunter finding another hidden python. A scientist discovering a new clue about parasite resistance. An indigo hatchling emerging from a burrow without human help. An alligator striking a snake that once seemed untouchable. A bobcat dragging a giant python through the mud. Each moment would be small compared with the size of the Everglades. Together, they could tell a different story. The story is no longer only about an invader taking over. It is about an ecosystem responding. The Burmese python entered Florida as an outsider and found a paradise built for its survival. Warm water, thick vegetation, abundant prey, and few predators gave it an extraordinary advantage. 4 years, that advantage seemed overwhelming. But the Everglades is not a passive place. Its native species are still here. Scientists are still searching. Hunters are still walking the roads. Conservationists are still rebuilding habitats. And the animals themselves are still capable of learning. That means the ending has not been written. The camera was never supposed to capture a victory. It was supposed to document a problem. Instead, it recorded a possibility. A predator had become prey. And in the darkness of the Everglades, that single reversal may be one of the clearest signs yet that Florida's wild places are not finished fighting for themselves.